Thank you very much. So happy to be here. Thank you, Michael, for the introduction. I saw earlier someone got the memo because I saw someone elbowing someone else in a positive way, because now we're recommending not shaking hands but elbowing, right? Just to say hello. Glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I will share kind of along those lines that I'd love to stay past the question and answer piece to hear my colleagues over here, their presentation, and be available for that. But as you might imagine, there's a lot going on with the coronavirus, and I want to make sure that I'm available to get communication out to districts. The goal is before 1 o'clock today, updated guidance. So I want to head back to the office to work on that. So I know you'll excuse me after the presentation this morning. But I'm glad to be here. I wanted to share briefly an overview of some of the direction that we're taking at the agency. And I know there may be questions that relate to how we can support the work that you do and the proposals that you may have. And I want to be available to answer those questions. But let me start off by saying, as was mentioned by Mike, Meriden, born and raised, my kids go to Meriden Public Schools. I was a teacher there. And if it weren't for public education, I wouldn't be Commissioner of Education. Public education opened doors for me and my family. So let me just, does it work now? Okay. Yeah. Right at the, thank you. So public education opened doors. I'm an example of that. Many of you are examples of that. No different than your experience. My experience is based off of people that came here to the United States from Puerto Rico, in my case. They left the paradise on the bottom left to go live in a housing projects on the bottom right, because they knew that the jobs were better here and that they can provide better outcomes for their children than they had. So leaving a paradise like this is hard to do, right? To go into a high-rise there. So my grandparents, and I laugh at that picture because my grandmother was in a legal library, and Olin Mills put her in that with that backdrop. She really, you know, it's kind of ironic, right? Because she was the homemaker. She really took care of the family. She really created, she was that foundation for us. So to see her there, it's almost like they just plopped her in front of a backdrop that she had no choice in choosing. So he went from a farmer, sugarcane farmer, to a tobacco farmer here in Hartford to make ends meet. And on the far picture there, that's my mom, and those are the siblings that she had to raise at the age of 13 because her mother had cancer, so they came here for medical purposes. So again, public education is the reason why I was able to be successful. And as a result of the public education I received, college, I went to college in Connecticut, I went to Central, and I went to UConn. Connecticut's school systems helped me become a provider and helped me contribute to the community in which I live now. And I think we have to look at it as education is Connecticut's best economic driver. And interviewing with the governor, Connecticut, a good pre-K-12 system is Connecticut's best economic driver. You know, it's really about community development, if you think about it. So I'm an example of that. I came from very little material, but public education helped me break that cycle of poverty, and now I'm contributing as a taxpayer in my community and contributing in other ways. So specifically, I would like the agency to move forward in two things specifically. Number one, increase the access of dual enrollment programs so that our first generation college goers in high school have the belief that if they successfully take classes in high school, in college, you know, college level courses in high school, that they can continue to a 2 or 4 year college. For many students, school systems are not preparing them enough to have those experiences. So dual enrollment programs is something that I think is critically important for this to work. I also think that we need to evolve our high schools to make sure that we're responsive to Connecticut's needs with regard to college and career opportunities for students. So we talk a lot about college, but we know that there are many middle class jobs available with good salaries that we're not doing enough to connect our students to. So we're hoping to create better pathways for students so that they could contribute to their community by being gainfully employed versus working 2 to 3 jobs at $12 an hour to try to make ends meet and not being able to be there for their family or their parent-teacher conferences. One of the things we focus on also is unapologetically challenging the normalization of failure. You know this already, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but in Connecticut, if you're black or brown, you are roughly 20 points behind the curve in terms of achievement outcomes. And my comment there is very, very intentional. The normalization of failure. Like, we're not losing sleep about this in the state of Connecticut because it's almost been normalized that poorer urban or students that are coming from disadvantaged homes are going to perform less. For the last 30 to 40 years, this is something that has plagued Connecticut, and we want to address that head on. Again, that makes economic sense. I don't have to tell you that having students that are graduating with the ability to be successful in college or career will help the community that you lead. It's not all dismal, we as much as we're going to focus on those things, our schools are ranked pretty high in the country. And for the majority of our learners in our schools, they find success in our schools. But these are issues that we have to address. More affluent black students perform worse than poor white students in Connecticut today. That's what I'm talking about, the level of urgency, that together, there's nothing that we're going to do in silo of what you're doing. To do that, I believe strongly that we have to make sure we're focusing on, and the guidance that we provide as an agency is to make sure that districts are focusing on the instructional core. And what that means is basically engaging in a competent workforce, teachers and leaders, ensuring that students are engaged in schools, and the special education conversations that you have regularly. Student engagement. If we're not engaging with students well, they're disengaged, they're more likely to be outplaced. If the content that we provide our students is low quality, right? Our students are going to end up being identified as students with learning disabilities because they didn't have the good quality content that provides interventions when it's needed to prevent what I'm seeing in some districts where 1 out of every 5 kids is special education. 1 out of every 4 students is special education. What is that saying? We need to do a better job making sure we're providing good core programming to prevent some of that, which ultimately becomes outplacement costs if not handled well. There's some literature on there, brain science, about you could have Mike could be a tremendous teacher, and I can be a tremendous teacher. Mike's students have really good content, really good curricular materials, right? My students have poor quality curricular materials. The outcomes of the students in his class and the students in my class are different by like 2 years worth. Okay, but we're equal quality teachers. The content, what we put in front of our kids, matters a lot. And it matters for the success of the students. It matters for the prosperity of that community. So at the agency, we're also thinking about systems. We can't do things in silos. So if we were to fix that content issue that I just talked about, that's not enough. If I were to work on making sure that we have high quality leaders, that's not enough. There are many different systems that contribute to system health. Okay, so these are all, and I want you to see the connection between what your interests are, what your concerns are, what your legislative priorities are. Okay? In some cases, the best support we could provide to districts is making sure that they have fiscal health, that they know how to use their grants, that they know how to make sure that their money is being used toward those things that are going to give them the best ROI, right? It may not be curriculum. Some districts have good curriculum, but the way they're managing their finances needs help. Some districts need board governance support. I'm not going to ask you, but I'm sure some of your districts, you're feeling like the Board of Education needs guidance. Who's helping them? We could give a district $25 million in alliance funds, but if there's bickering and fighting on the board level, I don't have the confidence that that money is going to be trickled into the things that matter most for kids. That's on us. We have to take a responsibility as an agency to be more proactive, more assertive in those areas. So I'm promoting we're going to call this a district framework for success. And we're going to be providing support to districts on these areas. Climate and student engagement. What you don't see there is outplacement. So we need to look at which districts are struggling maintaining support for students within districts and have to rely too heavily on placement somewhere else. You know, when I was assistant superintendent, my budget, 80% of it was staffing, right? Some of it was staffing somebody far away to take care of students that we can't support in our district. So we have to look at that with districts and make sure that we're providing them some guidance on best practices. All right, so I'm talking at the 50,000 foot view right now. I want to drill down really quickly on this one and say I'm very interested in special education redesign for districts. The agency needs to do more to support districts. There are districts that have done it well. There are districts that over the course of 4 to 5 years have developed programming in their district that has saved millions of dollars. In my initial assessment as Commissioner of Education is that there's a lot more that can be done there. There's a lot more that can be done there. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to convene a summit, if you will, of districts learning from districts. I won't name districts now, but I've spoken to superintendents over the last 2 months who've really said, I need to get a handle on this outplacement cost. And I've spoken to superintendents that said, I'm saving money now because I changed my special education programming. And guess what? Parents like it better because kids are not on a bus for 45 minutes. Or they're not worried that you're paying tuition for a program and you're not sure if the kid is even showing up or getting a quality program. Isn't that an issue that you're dealing with? So let's work together on that. So expanding the core to promote district success is something that is high on my list. So much so that I asked for this to be a legislative proposal out of my office. I want the legislators to tell me that I have to do this. You know, I made the mistake of showing this slide in front of the lieutenant governor last week, and she goes, "Why are you showing me that? Our transportation bill didn't pass." I said, "No, I didn't mean to rub it in." But you know, what I'm talking about is nothing flashy or sexy. It's the infrastructure, the guts of what makes schools work. And similar to the transportation plan, how, you know, talking about bridges and highways is not the flashy thing. It's what's going to make our Connecticut grow. Similarly, in schools, this is the framework. This is the infrastructure. This is the highway system. So we need to design our agency to make sure we're meeting those needs. Don't worry. We'll get there. There we go. Good. So this next slide that I'm going to show you, I have to kind of give it a disclaimer. In order to do this work, we have to look at how we can support one another. And in order to do that, we need to not be reactive to things that are coming out or just problem solve. We need to develop a structure where boards of education leaders and CCM leaders are sitting around the table to talk about what are the best ways to engage and how do we move this work forward. I have had conversations with board chairs already and with several mayors and town managers about saying, hey, how do we bring the group together to problem solve proactively so that there's a shared understanding of where we want to go. That's something that I'm extremely interested in doing in order to provide the best product for our students. But the slide that I was telling you about is this one here, right? So just soak that in for a second, please. A lot of times, and education is included, we like to focus on the frosting and on the sprinkles, right? We like shiny things, we like fancy after-school program or a Saturday morning program or something that makes you feel good. But it's really important that together we focus on the batter, right? Because sometimes we could put something that's really pretty, but the core of the agency or the core of the mission of the work is garbage, right? And this was a picture that I saw at an art show. This was a student from Daniel Hand High School. You know, I'm gonna have to meet the student and tell her I've been using her picture. Give her credit for it. Her name is Summer from Madison.
Write a check as well.
You write a check, right. Anyone from Madison here?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you let Summer know. I already told the superintendent that I want to get over there and I want to have a conversation because I was with the governor last week and I said, look, let's invest in the batter together. And what I'm asking you to do is, you know, we have a session, let's think broader. How do we together invest in the batter to share that if we do the batter right, that public education will be that driver that you can say, this is why people are coming to the community, this is why people are staying in the community, and our system will pay dividends for our district. And I don't mean school district, I mean the city. Okay. I'm a lifelong Meriden resident. Meriden success matters to me. I choose to live in Meriden. I choose to pay taxes in Meriden. I choose to frequent those restaurants. But we need to think of public education as one of the drivers for success in the community. And we need to partner with you on that. Again, a good offense is the best defense. For us, public education is where it's at. I'm an example of that. You're an example of that, many of you. It changes the trajectory of students' lives. It changes the trajectory of communities. And how do we have these conversations and engage so that we're listening to your needs and you're listening to our needs, and together we have a collective voice. I think that's where we're going to make the most difference. We have to promote best practices, provide support and accountability, be bold and intentional with our actions, and lead. I feel very strongly that we can lead the nation in public education. We need to make sure all the arrows are pointing in the same direction, which does not mean that we're not talking about the issues that we're having, but I know that we could do it. I used a slide deck recently to share a campaign that we have, Teachers Shape Lives and Learn Grow CT. That's Connecticut's Teacher of the Year, and that's the national president of the Federation of Teachers. This campaign is intended to promote the teaching profession as a profession that you should go into. We're trying to recruit and make sure that this is a profession that we hold up. It's always under attack, and it's really our responsibility to make sure that we honor our teachers. I'm going to pause there, and again, thank you for the invitation. As I said earlier, unfortunately, I can't stay.